Hello and welcome to another episode of India and Global Left. Please like, share, subscribe, and comment. Also consider becoming a member, a Patreon, or donate small amounts. Without further ado, let me welcome our guest, Scott Ritter. Scott is an American, former United States Marine Corps intelligence officer, former United Nations Special Commission's weapons inspector, author, and commentator. Scott, welcome back to India and Global Left.
Oh, thank you very much for having me.
About 9 days ago, you gave us an exclusive interview where you said, and you were one of the first, and the video was by about 400,000 people. You said that what we are seeing in the White House in terms of American foreign policy is a most transformational period in the history of American foreign policy. In the light of that analysis of yours, how would you describe what happened between President Zelensky and President Trump and his vice president on Friday at the Oval Office?
How do I describe it? Inevitable. There was no other possible outcome of this meeting. Um, Anybody with two working brain cells knew this. Uh, Ukraine and the United States are on two fundamentally opposed trajectories. Ukraine is on a path towards committing some sort of national suicide on behalf of a a Europe that is rediscovering its warmongering past. Um, in the United States is a superpower fully aware of the role that we have played in promoting conflict in the world these past decades, and finally having a president willing to identify the root causes of this urge for conflict-based hegemony, and is actively seeking to deconstruct it. So when you have a president on that trajectory meeting, that's the American president, meeting a Ukrainian president on his trajectory, and you bring them together, this is the inevitable outcome.
One of the things you told us is that Zelensky's government is already collapsing. And watching that debate, that fiasco, I was wondering what made Zelensky so committed to the kind of suicide that he did at the Oval Office by arguing his case that is unarguable. Uh, I wonder if it is the pressure of his home constituency. Is it that he had to play to the gallery back home that emboldened him to do what he did? What's your thought on that?
Well, first of all, I always I'm hesitant to use the term like emboldened him to do what he did. There's some sort of nobility to that. Is a drug addict emboldened to seek out their next fix? I don't think anybody would use the term emboldened, because that implies nobility, that implies strength, that implies something that is worthy of admiration. Zelensky is a drug addict in the final throes of his addiction. Um, and this isn't just his obvious addiction to cocaine, which has manifested itself so flagrantly these past weeks. It's his addiction to power, addiction to corruption. Zelensky is a walking manifestation of everything that is bad with the human condition. There is no redeeming quality to this man. So I hesitate to throw terminology at him that somehow implies that represents anything good. But Zelensky is more than just the failure of an individual. He's the failure of a nation, the nation of Ukraine, which is an artificial nation, a fake nation that is built upon the premise of white supremacy. Now, I know you're from India. I don't want to insult anybody, but I certainly hope that you and everybody in your geographical region, you are familiar with white racism. You have suffered under white racism. You know what it's like to live governed by white supremacists, people who look down on you and use language that demeans you. Ukraine is the living manifestation of modern white supremacy. The foundational ideology of Ukraine, Western Ukrainian nationalism, has seen itself manifested in what we call banderism. But all banderism is Ukrainian white supremacy. They literally claim to be the Ubermensch. They are the ultimate. They look down on anybody who is not from their specific racial identity as subhuman, just like the British looked at you as being subhuman. All right, so let's stop giving nobility to these people. They are evil at the core. The nation is an evil construct, an artificial construct put together by an accident of history and then had life breathed into it like Frankenstein's monster by Dr. Frankenstein, which was an amalgam of the United States and Europe. So that's the other thing we have to recognize. The flaw isn't just Zelensky, the flaw is the national construct. And then we have to talk about Dr. Frankenstein, the flaw that is Europe. Europe is a fundamentally diseased continent. Its history proves this over and over and over again. From the earliest manifestations of European identity through Charles Martel to the Crusades. Again, I just want to remind the people that aren't white like me who have European roots, you know darn well what white Europeans are capable of doing. God wills it. You know what that means, don't you? That means I take the Crusader's sword and I plunge it through your Saracen heart. God wills it. And God has been willing Europe to slaughter the world as its minions in this racist imperialist conquest and then turn on itself. Napoleonic Wars. What do you think that was? World War I, World War II, the Balkan conflict, the war in Ukraine. It's part of the same diseased culture of Europe that cannot tolerate peace. Europe is a continent incapable of tolerating peace. Europe must have war. And because America was largely derived from European roots, we inherited that mindset. And we have tragically, over the course of many decades, been a nation at war with the world because the only way to promote American hegemony was to do it through the tool of conflict. We now have a president who has said, I recognize the evil, and it is us. He literally said this. He said the greatest enemy of the United States is the United States because how we interface with the rest of the world. And he has come to power by appealing to the American people to break free of the chains of this conflict-driven military-industrial complex. And everybody can say that's theory, and I challenge you, and I said it to you last time, it's not theory, it's reality playing out right in front of your eyes. You just choose not to see it, not to believe it. But he is tearing apart that infrastructure that promotes conflict. What do you think the dismantling of USAID was? What do you think the dismantling of the National Endowment of Democracy was? Why do you think he has ordered the Pentagon to begin immediate reduction in budgets without any major foreign policy objectives? Because the trajectory is to demilitarize how America interfaces with the rest of the world. And Zelensky, Ukraine, and Europe can't handle it. See, Zelensky is a product of Europe. The Churchillian construct that's been put in is a British propaganda exercise run by MI6, by the British Secret Intelligence Service. It's helped by the CIA, it's helped by mainstream media, but the major script writers all have British accents. And he is promoting this. But what was Winston Churchill? Again, I don't need to tell you who Winston Churchill was. See, in the West, we glorify him as the man who's going to fight people on the beach. In India, you know him as the mass murderer that he is, the man who killed millions of Indians during World War II, and the world didn't say a peep because you're brown, you're not white, you don't count. That's the mindset, and that's the European mindset, that's the Ukrainian mindset. We now have a president in the United States who says that's not a good mindset. That's a bad mindset, that we should be promoting peace, not war. But Europe doesn't know peace. Europe only knows war. And this is the fundamental reason why that meeting was never going to work. Because Zelensky is a flawed human being representing a fundamentally flawed national construct that is a derivative of one of the most corrupt cultures in the history of mankind. When we think of that which has been wrought on humanity over the centuries, the Europeans are the core evil. The Europeans, from Europe comes the drive to slaughter in the millions. No other movement, even the Mongols coming across don't kill as efficiently as the Europeans do. So we have an American president that has said no to this. Now he's not perfect. I mean, we can sit here and go through the difficulties of his Middle East policy, and the accusations that he is a supporter of Zionism. Um, I have attempted to put together a narrative that shows he is trying to break free of that. Um, but it's a difficult narrative to sell because of the the more the more I try to say he's also trying to bring peace to the Middle East, the more I turn on the TV and see Israel committing acts of violence, promoted by the United States. And so this isn't a perfect president. America is not a perfect nation, and our policies are not perfect. But what I ask people to do when we speak of Ukraine is to become singularly focused on Ukraine for the moment, because Ukraine is the one conflict that could kill every person in India. You do know that if there is a third world war and it goes nuclear, you all die. You will not live. So this war means more to you than any other conflict out there right now. And so we have a president who says he wants to bring an end to this war. I'd like to believe the world should be trying to give him a chance.
It's important to reiterate that President Donald Trump, again and again during the debate, that fiasco, told President Zelensky that you are playing with World War III, and he repeated it thrice.